Hi everyone, it's Ashley Black with Candid Consulting, here to address your common Google App Campaign questions. Today, I'm going to walk you through how to set up a web-to-app campaign if you use Adjust as your MMP. In a video I think I posted a couple weeks ago, I walked through the differences between web-to-app campaigns and how to validate if a direct-to-app store campaign is a good fit for you to run with Google. Today, if you have validated that and you use Adjust as your MMP, I'm going to walk you through how to actually set that up. Stick around. Okay, to start setting up our web-to-app campaign, we're actually going to start in Adjust. So once you navigate to Adjust, you come to Campaign Lab, and then you're going to select Partners. This is where I already am. If you do not have a partner listed as Google Ads Search, you're going to need to create that new partner. When you click on this, it'll automatically find it for you, Google Ads Search. Not Google Ads Search web app. That's something different. We want Google Ads Search by itself. You can see this, in this case, I obviously already have it created. So I'm going to click on that to show you what it looks like. I actually have two different links that I'm using in this example, but I'm just going to show you what one of them looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And this is where you're going to actually be able to see those links that we're going to use to drive users to the App Store from a search campaign and still be able to maintain in-app tracking. So this is the link that we're going to use. Go ahead and copy that once you finish setting everything else up on the previous step. You're going to name your link. I keep all of the campaign parameters as is. I use the default, and then your attribution settings, that's up to you guys on how you want to set that up. But I tend to just use app level settings, and I use like a 24-hour impression based, like a view through conversion window. All right, we've got the click URL. Go ahead and copy that. And then I'm going to show you how you go about setting things up on the Google side. Now that we've navigated back to Google, we're going to come over to, move this out of the way, to the goals section. This is where we're going to start. And once you get to the goals section, let's go all the way to the bottom. And we're actually going to be creating a custom goal. If you haven't done a ton with Google, if you haven't run any basic search campaigns with Google, it's probably the first time you're even noticing this. But you're going to go ahead and create a new one, add custom goal. You're going to need to make a name for it. Let's just call it web to app to make things simple. And then you're going to select whatever conversions you want the search campaign to optimize for. In most cases, this is going to be the same thing that you have your UAC campaigns optimizing for. I'm just going to select one that's really simple. Let's just do first open. And I'm actually going to select the first open event from the MMP, from Adjust. In most cases, I recommend using a Firebase event. But in this case, from my experience, I find that actually I see stronger attribution and measurement when using an Adjust goal. So that's what I'm going to keep it with. I don't know why, but it's what I've experienced. So I'm going to go on experience here. And if it wasn't clear to folks from the beginning, I guess I should have said this at the top of this recording, but this is mostly a strategy I would use for iOS. Go back and watch and talk about this being an iOS strategy, but in this case, I'm going to select, while you may not be able to see it, the iOS first open conversion event from Adjust. Okay, once that's saved, I'm not going to save it because I already have an event created in this example, but that is what I would use when I go through to set up the campaign. All right, that piece is done. That's another step. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of steps in setting up a web to app campaign. So now we're going to come back to the campaigns, and I'm going to go ahead and walk you through how to actually set one up for the first time. So I'm going to create a campaign, guidance, and I'm going to select search. So again, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, people who want to test out a Google web to app campaign are going to be testing out a search campaign. So I'm going to select search. And then again, now you have a list of all of the different conversion events or goals that you can select. I'm going to say add goal, if it's even here, and then you'll see your custom goal. Sorry if this is blurred out, but this is where your custom goal will actually show up, and then you can select it. So that's what I'm going to do. And say continue. And you can ignore this part, select how you want the results, just ignore it. Continue. Your campaign name, name it whatever you want. Let's call it test web to app and continue. All right, what do you want to focus on? I assume you're going to want to focus on conversions. So that's what you're going to select. You can also select conversion value. I am doing this for some other clients as well, where I'm optimizing for conversion value. Again, you need to have a pretty high volume of conversions coming through that are actually populating value back to Google. So sort of your call on how you want to do that. Certainly, if you are optimizing for conversion value, make sure that the events that you're optimizing for have values associated with them, and those values are being passed to Google. In this case, I'm just going to keep it simple and say conversions. Up to you if you want to set a target CPA. I also have opinions on that. In this case, I probably would set one up. Okay, and then I'm just going to keep clicking next. I tend to opt out of these two. I know that they are recommended. That's so that Google can probably spend more of your budget. I would say that if the campaign's performing phenomenally and you want to see more volume, you can go back and change that setting. Let's go ahead and close that. You select your location. Let's just do the United States, English. Okay, right? All of these settings are pretty standard. Then you're going to come into more settings. This is where it actually matters. See this? Campaign URL options. This is where we're going to use the adjust link that we copy and pasted and actually input that here. Let's see if it actually carried over. Oh, it didn't. That's an old Loom one, but this is where you would copy and paste that click link URL that you generated in adjust. Okay, so if you need to right now, and if you're following along step by step, that's where you would go back to adjust, grab it, and put it in there. All right, more settings. Let's just make sure. Again, you're going to notice within your search campaign, you have way more options in terms of, when you want your ads to serve, who you want to, well, maybe not who you want to target on a search campaign, but the types of keywords. There's a lot more settings that are available to you on a search campaign than UAC. Let's click through next. Again, I'm still a little bit weary on AI Max, so I'm going to opt out of that one. And then the final URL is actually going to be your App Store URL. Okay, so go ahead, find it, grab your app's URL from the App Store, and that's where you're going to input that. I'm going to go ahead and say skip. And this is optional. You don't have to have a URL by keyword. We're just setting it up at the campaign level. This is where you're going to create, again, the final URL here is the App Store URL. You're going to add a bunch of headlines. I am not going to walk through on the most optimal way to set up a search campaign. There's a lot of information out there about that. So you guys can go and find, the best way to set up a search campaign. I would recommend adding images though. You can use a stock image. It just takes up more real estate when somebody's on when somebody's looking on like google.com. So that would be my recommendation there. Come on through. You can add your business logo. Site links, I don't add. And that's because, I want the user to go to the App Store directly. So I don't want to give them other options on what they can, where they could go if you have a website, for example. I don't want them navigating away from the App Store. However, if you have a bunch of custom product pages that you have available, within the App Store Connect, this is where you can actually add them. I would say though, you want to, again, your setup that you're going to do on search is going to depend on what site links that you use. And so again, I don't have all the time, and I'm also not an expert exactly on, what's the optimal way to set up a site link that links to what keywords you're using and the types of ads. I'm going to let you guys do your own research on that. We're just talking about how to do a web to app campaign. So that's that. That is the setup. You can say, I'm going to cancel out of this and hopefully just get away from it. That would be the basic setup there. One important thing to note when you're setting up, so this is an existing web to app campaign that I have running for a client. Something really, really important, if you're still with me, hopefully, is if you navigate into when and where ads show. Let's do where ads show. Devices. You can see that there's bid adjustments. In this case, again, because I'm driving people directly to the App Store, I do not want these ads to show on computers. I just want these ads to be available to show on mobile devices. And again, if you have a tablet or your app is available on a tablet, then you can have it show up there. But I don't want it to show up on computers. That's not an optimal user experience. It's also not going to work. So you're going to modify your bid adjustment to not serve on computers. So a decrease, you can choose increase or decrease, a decrease of 100%. That's what I already have. And then that's why you'll see that I have no volume or no traffic going to computers in this case. It's all going to mobile and tablets. Okay, that was a very lengthy walkthrough on how to go about setting your campaign up. That's the gist of it. Again, there's a whole other sort of science to what keywords you add, if you're going to have them phrase match, broad match, exact match, if you're using, dynamic search ads, responsive search ads, all of that other stuff. Again, there's a lot of information out there on how to best set that up. But this was how to go about the initial setup to ensure tracking is accurate and you're able to run a search campaign with Google directly to the App Store. I hope that helps.